Yes.
So we'll wait one more minute and we'll start the session. So I can see still participants are joining. So let's wait one more minute. So good morning, good day, everyone. Once again, welcome to AZ104 technical discussion. Yesterday, we were discussing about a concept of Microsoft Azure fundamentals. We have discussed about a couple of Azure core resources. And finally, we have landed a service called Microsoft Azure Compute. Inside of Microsoft Azure Compute, we have many services are available. And we have picked one important service which really needed for our day-to-day operations. The service name was been known as Microsoft Azure VM. Can you please stop background music? Suraj, is there any background noise you're getting?
Not really, but there is something when you talk, but it's not that disturbing or any unable to hear you well or anything like that.
I have been enabled a noise cancellation. I hope it's been better now.
Yes.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Yesterday we were discussing about I'm not playing any music on the back end. I'm not sure from where it's been coming because I'm sitting in a closed room and I don't have any device or anything. It's been available on the back end to make a noise here. I hope it's been manageable, right? Suraj?
Actually, I don't hear any music.
Yeah, even my system also in my secondary device also, I'm also not hearing anything. So not sure. In case if anyone is getting, it may be something echo from the device of yours, requesting the members to reconnect your Teams link. So let me go back to the topic right away, whatever we are discussing here. So we were discussing about a topic called implementing a VM on Microsoft Azure Cloud. We have seen a couple of IT infrastructure currently you can able to see in a customer place, which include on-premises data centers, and the second one it's been like using or it's been configuring on in a cloud infrastructure. In case if you're going for installing a VM on in a on-premises data center, it was quite easy. We need to just connect to Microsoft CD or a DVD, or we need to mount a user image to that particular physical host with the help of hypervisor, or directly you can able to install on top of the physical server. So in case if I want to configure any server on any on-prem scenarios, it was been easy, right? I need to go directly on in the operating system. I can directly on in a hardware I can able to install. On top of that, we have an option to install an application, or on top of that, we have an option to install a data. So that was the situation, or that is the way we were working on in a on-prem cloud. When it is coming on in a cloud scenario, it is not pretty much easy here, or it's not like a on-premises scenario here. Because when it is coming on in a cloud scenario, the way the installation is going to work it, first of all, there is a cost is bit associated here. When we were working on in an on-premises scenario, there is no cost is been coming. Only the cost is been coming on into the host side. Basically, we are investing on in a capex side. But when you're going on in a cloud side, there is no capex cost is been involved. Whatever cost is been coming, it's been coming in the category of a opex. So you are not paying or you are not investing anything on in advance. The cost which has been coming here, everything has been considered under a category of a operational expenditure. So you are not purchasing a server, or responsibility of managing a server has been not the headache of your SME or the IT team. It's been completely managed by the cloud service provider. Now, the one important point we need to remember, the way it's been connecting to the cloud, that's the one important point always we need to consider when you are going for deploying any VM. When you're going or when we were working on in on premises, we used to use a couple of methods. One, it's been like, in case if I need to install a server on in on premises, we go directly on into the data center with the help of a CD or a DVD drive, or with the help of an ISO image. We used to install the operating system directly on in a server. That is a one mode of the installation. Now, when it is coming on in a cloud, the first important method or the first important point you need to remember, how you are going to connect to this server here. What is the type of the management tool you are going to use it here? So yesterday I was saying there are many management tools are available in a cloud infrastructure. One, it's been like you can able to use portal.azure.com. You can able to use Microsoft Azure PowerShell. You have a CLI option is been available. You have a Bash option is been available. You have a SDK option is been available. So there are different management tools are available. So any of these tools you can able to use it for the deployment of any resources here, whether it's coming on in a VM, or in case if you're going for creating a VNet or a database or a firewall. At any point of time, when you're going for a deploying or a configuring or decommissioning any of the servers, you can use any of this management tool with the help with the basically the flexibility you are looking or the comfortness you are having. Based on that, you can pick any of these tools here. Now, for the deployment of the VM on this scenario, or in this case, on this delivery, I'm planning to use a portal.azure.com, which has been the easy one, or it's been more graphical user interface mode here. So right now I'm giving a scenario here. We are working for a medical research organization. Customer has been looking for a locations, or the customer has been looking for a VM which need to be installed in a East US location. I'm just giving a scenario. We are working for an organization called Medical Research Company, and they need to have a server to be installed in a East US locations. In a East US location, they are looking one server which is been to be configured with Windows Server 2022 or a 2016, or it can be a Unix also. Now, right now, let's see how this has been enabled or how this has been configured here. First of all, for deploying or decommissioning or connecting to a server, the first action we need to do here is we need to connect to the cloud infrastructure. So you need to have a portal, or you need to have a PowerShell has been available, which will help us to connect to the cloud infrastructure. So because the entire host or entire infrastructure, it's been completely on, or it's been available, or it's been hosted, or it's been residing in Microsoft data center. So we need to have a connectivity. You may be sitting in a Nepal or a Malaysia or a Indonesia. So we need to connect to the Microsoft data center here. That is the first task we are going to do here. As I said, we have a multiple methods are available here. So the method right now I'm going to use it here. It's been basically using a portal.azure.com. That is the easiest method. I'm going to use it here. So let me enter my personal details or the credential I've been used. So I was using my friend ID now. So because my ID is having some issue, so I'm just took help from my friend. So let me use its ID because my ID is got expired. So I'm just taking help from my. Give me a second. I'm just trying to get OTP for this. Right now, you may be able to see we have connected to the Microsoft Cloud portal here. Now, we are discussing about a deployment of a VM on in a cloud infrastructure. So yesterday I was saying a couple of methods can be used, which will help us for deploying a VM here. So I'm going to use a first method here. In case if I need to go for any creation of a VM, on the left side of your panel, that basically known as whatever screen or whatever option which we are able to see on the left side of the screen, basically known as resource panel. Now on the resource panel, you may be able to see an option called virtual machines. Now, the moment when you're going for creating a VM or virtual machines, you can able to select a first option called create a virtual machine here. You may be able to see on the top of the screen, you are able to see an option like a create, reservation, manage view, refresh. There is a couple of options you may be able to see it here. So right now I'm going to discuss based on the configuration the client has been requested here. So I'm selecting an option like a create here. You can able to see here. So I just selected an option called create. I just selected an option called create Azure virtual machine. So I've been selected create Azure virtual machine here. Now, the moment it's been created here, at any point of time, when you're going for creating any virtual machine or resource, the first option you need to select is something called as subscription. Right now on the Dropbox, you may be able to see only one subscription is been available here. Now we are getting a question. What is the use of a subscription here? You may be already having some information about a subscription inside your organization, right? Can you comment it on in a chat? What is your understanding about a subscription? Assure subscription. If somebody is saying like we need a subscription for creating a virtual machine. So what is your understanding about that? Can you comment it on the chat? Requesting everyone to it's a pay for the service, okay? Something that you rent it, okay? Waiting for the response from all the members here. So I got only 2 comments. It's for VM for a rent, okay? Now I'm asking what is the use of a subscription here? So that is my question here. So I got only 3 answers. So let me post some lecture note for here. So basically, when you are using a heard about a subscription, this something is been using for a billing purpose. We understood when you are using a cloud technology here, end of the usage, we have to pay the money to Microsoft or any of the cloud here, right? Basically, we understood when you are using a cloud infrastructure, this has been working as a kind of a pay as you go model, right? Based on the consumption, we are paying the money to Microsoft or respective vendor. So vendor can be AWS, vendor can be Azure, vendor can be um, any of this uh, cloud service provider here. Now, the moment when you decided like pay as you go model, we need to ensure that this needs some kind of a billing plans, right? So that is been coming under a category of subscription. So whatever usage or a consumption we have, that consumption is been mapped to a plan called subscription. Now, in your organization, one account can have multiple subscription. In your organization, you may be having a for better administrative purpose rather than everything is been billing under one bucket. You may be seeing like you have a HR department or a finance department or you have a IT department or you have a Windows or a Linux or a chemistry department, right? Why we are making a different department or a vertical inside in an organization? The reason is been like a better resource management, right? Or for a better billing purpose or better administration purpose, we used to have a different department, right? Same thing here also. Rather than billing everything under one bucket, for a better resource management or better control over your permissions, Microsoft has been allowing us to create a multiple subscription. For example, like all your HR department, if you want to map under one logical container, you can map under HR subscription. So what I'm trying to say here is, right, when you are using an Azure account, you one account can have a multiple subscription to be available. That's an important point you need to remember. So one account can have a multiple subscription to be available. It's not that one account, one subscription. No, in your account or when you're creating have a Microsoft ID, you can have multiple subscription to be aligned. Now that information you can able to see it from here. Right now, when you connect it to Microsoft Azure portal, the number or the subscription which you are saying here, that all depends upon how your permission is been aligned by your global admin or your administrator or your cloud administrator of your organization. In your organization, you may be having n number of subscription may be available, but normally all organization will be a following a concept called RBAC. It's called role based access control. Rather than giving permission to each and every employee in an organization will put some kind of a restriction on in the subscription. So end of the day, you need to understand at any point of time when you are going for creating any kind of a resource creation. Still I'm getting some message that there is some background noise. Let me check it. Let me reconnect. I'm not seeing any getting any background noise on my device. I have changed the mic now. Is it better now? Surya, can you just confirm, is there any echo or any kind of a noise on the background?
Not really, but I think the previous mic was a lot better.
No, I just reconnected
It's
the same mic only. I just changed the USB port.
uh okay. It's okay. I don't think there is an echo, any issue.
Requesting all the members to confirm that. Maybe the mic may be close to my mouth. Maybe that's the reason. I just changed the position. Is it better now? Okay, thank you. I just got one feedback or comment from yes, no issue for me. Okay. So what I was trying to say here, it's about a subscription part. So subscription is basically using for a billing purpose and for the resource management or the better administration one. So technically, when you go back to your office or when you go back to your project, you may be able to see the subscription management is completely done with the help of a concept called RBAC or basically known as role-based access control. In your organization, you may be having hundreds of subscription may be available, but based on your role or based on the project you are currently handling, only based on that, the access to your subscription will be allowed by the organization. Now, right now, you need to remember here at any point of time when you go for creating any resource. Right now on the screen, you may be seeing like the moment when you start creating a VM, the first question is asking like, hey admin, hey, good morning, Robin, where do you want to start building this resource? So I need to mention this needs to be built under a category of a trainer. So you may be able to see at any point of time, whether if you are going for creating a SQL database or when you go for creating a firewall or when you go for creating any other resources here, it's the mandatory information we need to give it for deploying time. It's called a subscription. You may be seeing here, the moment when you create a virtual machine, there is a few mandatory information we need to provide at the time of the deployment here. You may be able to see there is a red star mark you can able to see on in the screen. So that information is mandatory that we need to provide during the sessions or during the deployment. Right now, you can able to see on the screen, we have a subscription is been mandatory one. You may be able to see there is a red star mark is been showing here. Now, the first important information which we need to give it at the time of a VM creation, it's called subscription. So at any point of time, when you are planning for creating a VM, there is a few information mandatory we need to give. So the first details we need to give it's called subscription. Let me give you a few lecture note for that. So subscription is basically using for the resource management. So in case if you are not aware of this, let me give you a few lecture note for you. I just pasted the lecture note on the chat. In case if you're not aware or if you don't have any note for this, requesting you to copy this one. So this is a few information about what is a subscription here. So let me give some which situation we need to use the subscription. Let me give you that details as well. So that will give you some additional insight about a subscription here. I just pasted the details on the chat here. Just copy this one. So this is a situation we need to use this one. So let me copy this details on this one. So this will help us to understand better about Azure subscription here. So right now, end of the day, you need to understand when you go for a VM creation, it's mandatory that you need to have a subscription details to be available. Right now on the screen, you may be able to see I have already a subscription has been available here. Resource group already we have discussed. Resource group is something like it's kind of a logical container which will help us to organize the resource which has been created inside your Microsoft Azure. In case if you're not aware about this, don't worry, just hold for some time. After deploying a VM, I'll show you how resource group is been deployed here. Now, let me give a name for this deployment group is called production. Production is the resource group I'm giving. Now, the moment when you go for creating a virtual machine, normally we used to go for a couple of standard practice here. So rather than selecting or giving a name like a Robin computer or a Sudal computer or Muhammad computer or X computer or Y computer, always we prefer to use some kind of a standard nomenclature. I have seen people will be using a name like a VM1 or a VM2. But when you go back to your office or when you go back to your project, in case if you're giving a name like a VM1 or a VM2, it will be very difficult to understand or it will be very difficult for us to um, follow this pattern in the future. So that's the reason organizations are started using some kind of a pattern for your naming part. Right now on the screen, I'm just giving some pattern which normally the architects or SMEs are used to use it on in a cloud infrastructure. Right now on the screen, you may be able to see while giving a name for your VM, these are the few letters we used to use it while giving or assigning to a VM rather than giving jackfruit or rather than giving orange or rather than giving like a Suresh computer or Rahman computer or a VM computer or a test one or a server one. Better use a combination of these elements. For example, like first few letter, you can give it as a dev or a prod or a QA. So while seeing your VM name, you will be able to identify whether this has been coming under production infrastructure or is it coming under on in a quality or it's in a development side. You will be able to identify this. Now, along with your infrastructure or environment details, you can add some location details also followed by few location like you can use some short terms like a UW or UE or this kind of a location details can be added along with your VM. Now addition to that, we can able to give some instance name or VM name here. So that will give a standard or unified or uniformity on all the names here rather than giving test or a server one or a server two, this kind of a names if you are giving, that will help us to put a uniform or a governance on in the naming pattern. Right now on the screen, I given some name for you. For example, like you can able to see, I just given a one example for you, DEV. I'm just given some example for you here. So like a DAV Web 1. Now, in case if you're seeing this name, what is your understanding from here? Can you just read this one and identify? Maybe the first three letter you can identify. This has been configured under the development infrastructure. Next is C, two, three letter is saying this has been configured under US South Central or as US Central Data Center. And this is going to be a web server. And this has been hosted in a VM01. So what I'm trying to say here, it's when you design or when you're planning for deploying of any VM or any resource, make sure that in your organization you are using some uniformity rather than giving some your own name or your own pattern. Make sure that you are following some governance model on into the um, deployment or the naming pattern. That's a very important point. You need to remember it here. Now, that's the important point you need to give while deploying a VM here. So the next point you need to give here, it's like a where you're going to configure here. I'm just giving is being going to configure as in a development in a North Europe region, and I'm going to configure a web server, and the VM name I'm giving is a VM01. So if someone is seeing this pattern from the name itself, the SME or the engineer or architect or the client, they will be able to identify where this has been hosted here. Now, I'm not saying that this is the hard rule. We need to use it here. This is the information you can able to see it from in a um, Microsoft's. Microsoft is not saying any hard rule for you. So this is the details or this is the pattern you can able to use it here. But when it is coming on in a normal scenario here, you can able to use this kind of a pattern. Each organization or each account or each project maybe having a different pattern will be following. So don't think that all the organization has been using to any kind of hard rule on this one, but each organization will have a different pattern here. Uh, it won't affect anything on into this one here. This just for administration purpose. This basically for our understanding or better administration. We are using this one. There is no dependency on in the um, internal configuration part. The only dependency we have, you can use a unique name only. In case if you already given this name for one of the resource or one of the VM, next time if you're trying to give the same name, you may getting a error message saying that under this subscription already we have a resource has been configured with the same name here. So the combination ID, it can be region, country, or a service, or this one. That depends upon the organization. So few organization may be using a different pattern or a different combination also. Right now, I just given some example. Either you can follow the same thing, or you can make your own uniformity or a nomenclature pattern inside in the organization. So that's up to you as an architect or as a SMA. That's your call or that's your decision. How do we want to go for a nomenclature or naming pattern? Now, the important point here, whenever you're using some pattern, please make sure that that is being documented and the entire organization or all SMEs has been following that. It's not that one IDF has been following some pattern. If tomorrow DAS is been coming with another type of a procedure, that will make a conflict. So better when you're going for any deployment of any VM, you need to document that and you need to ensure that you have a uniformity is being followed here. So that's the important one. So there's a important point we need to remember here. Now, so any questions related to this? Any questions? So far, if you are good, requesting you to comment it on the chat. Any questions from anyone? Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, now, right now we have been provided details about a subscription. we have provided the details about a virtual machine here. Now, the next important point we are going to consider about which data center we are going to deploy here. Now, the important point you need to remember, selecting of a region is been always depends upon the requirement from a client here. Three important parameter or three important factors we need to consider here. One, the region is been always selected based on the client availability. For example, all of my users are from North Europe. There is no point of keeping my server in a UK South or Central South or a South Africa, right? Because of latency issue. So always the virtual machine or region or physical data center. So the wherever you are seeing a region, the meaning it's been like a physical data center. So where you want to place your server, always it's been depends upon the user availability. If all my users are from X region, there is no point of keeping my server in a Y location, right? So always we prefer to have the server or the resources being hosted near to my user. That will give a better performance here. Second point you need to remember here, depends upon which country you have been using uh, uh, or which region you have been selecting here. Based on that, there will be some slight change for your pricing. For example, I'm just giving an example. If you are having a pizza from Nepal, you may be getting X cost. The same post pizza, if you are trying to have it from a Thailand or if you're trying to have it from a Indonesia or a Nepal, you may be getting for a Y price, right? It depends upon the availability of a resource, depends upon the facility cost. It's been considered all these points, and the vendor may be putting some X or Y pricing for. So that's important here. For example, right, I'm just giving here. You have a North Europe location here. I'm just trying to make or I'm trying to configure a Windows Server 2019 on in a North Europe region. You may be able to see there is a pricing has been coming here. Right now, you may be able to see 5,200 rupees is been INR has been coming here. So what I'm trying to say here, when you're trying to place a one resource, Windows Server 2019 with a 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM, the cost I'm going to get is around 5,000 rupees. So right now, my profile is been tagged under INR. That's the reason the amount is been showing in a local currency here. For example, the same resource, if I'm trying to configure in a other location, for example, like if I'm trying to configure in a South Africa, you may be able to see the pricing is getting changed. See, 5,000 is got changed to 6,000 rupees here. There's something like a pizza you're having from a Nepal and you're trying to have it from Indonesia or a Malaysia or a Sri Lanka, you may be getting a different price, right? So what I'm trying to say here is the same product which you are trying to install in a different regions having a different price tag. That all depends upon different factors. It can be SME cost or salary of employee, facility of that country, or the data center cost. It's been considered all this point, and based on that, Microsoft has been fixing some amount for that. So the important point from an architect point of view or a SME point of view that the same product is having a different cost. So that is an important point we need to remember. So the same product will have a different cost that will be affecting on in your region. So when you're deciding any resources here, you have to select it a region while there are two couple of points you need to consider. One is about resource availability. Second one it's been about how needs to be based on basically like where you want to employ. So that is an important point you need to remember here. So that's the important point you need to remember here. So the cost has been always it's been depends upon how you are placing your resource here. So one point. Now that's the important point you need to remember here. So you need to have a location needs to be selected. based on the locations. Now, another important point you need to remember here, when you plan for a regions, always we need to consider about whether that region is being supported that particular product or configuration or not. For example, we understood yesterday Microsoft having a regions almost 56 plus regions, and almost it's been available on in a 140 locations here. But the important point you need to remember here, right now on the screen, I'm showing you something called as product available in the region. For example, like when you are deploying this VM, in one place, something called as a size, you may be able to see there is an option you are getting something called size. So this is a place where you are selecting a VM configuration, or you are trying to create a VM on in a particular location. That all depends upon whether that region or data center is being supported that product or not. Microsoft is having 60 plus regions and 140 plus location. That doesn't mean that all the location is being supported all kind of products. No. So what we need to do here is, at any point of time when you're going for creating any locations here or any product here, always we need to refer this chart. You may be able to see the configuration tab or consolidated sheet here, which will allow you to select whether the product is been available in that country or not. You can able to see here, there is a tick mark you can able to see. It's saying that the particular configuration has been available in that particular country here. So that's the important point you can able to see here. Now, this not irrespective of VM, you have a option to select other product also. One second. Okay. Now, it's not a VM alone here. So the important point always we need to remember, or we need to keep in your mind here is, at any point of time when you're designing or implementing a resource, please ensure that you are referring this page. You can able to see, uh, you can able to see like there is a option you are getting here for basically like a product tab you may be getting here. So this will help us to understand whether this has been allowed to create a VM on that particular location, or whether the product is been supported in that region. That will help us to understand here. So you need to refer this page when you are deploying or when you are planning your VM on in a Microsoft Azure. So that's the four important point you need to remember. One is about a cost. Uh, is the region has
Hello.
been selectable while trying to
Hi,
avail
good
a service?
morning. I'm not sure if it's good morning there. It might be a different timing.
Suraj, you're trying to connect it here or on a different screen? Hello, Suraj, you are trying to say something? Look like it's in a different call. Now, Das has been asking another question here. Is the region is selectable while trying to avail the service, or is tied with your account region? No, Das, it's like when you try to create a account or when you try to create a subscription, based on your plan, you will get a flexibility to select the regions here. See, it's not that if I'm connected from India, I'm going to get only India. No, that depends upon your plan. So right now I'm using a free account plan. That's the reason I have a limited region option you are getting here. When if I am using a pay as you go kind of a model, I would have received access to almost all the region except Microsoft Azure government or the kind of the countries where we have some kind of a limitations. Rest all it depends upon what is the type of the subscription you are using. It's not that you have been connected from a Philippines. I've been uh, having access only to a Philippine region. No, not like that. Right now on the screen, thus you may be able to see here. I'm getting an access to almost all the regions here, which include US, South Africa, Central India, East Asia, Japan. All these locations have access. Basically, that's what we are trying to do here. Is we are not considering where is your SME has been placed. That may be connected from Indonesia or from a Nepal. But when you're designing an application, we are not considering from where the SME is being connected. Always we are considering who is using your application or who is going to use this VM, from which location or which region he is going to connect with this, because we need to avoid the latency, or we need to ensure that the user is getting a better performance while accessing this one. So that's an important point here. Is it clear? Yes. Give me a second. Let me give you some details about the region session here. I have some handy note available for you. Let me get it that. Just give me a second. I was just making some note for you. So regarding the Azure one, I was just getting that note for you. I just pasted the note on the chat. So I was just collecting that document for you, because since we discussed had a nice discussion about Azure region, I thought like I'll give you few. important point, which will help us for understanding the region selection. I'm just getting that document. So I'm just connecting to another laptop and just copying on in this one. That's the reason I just kept this call on mute. So right now we understood here, when you're going for creating a region here, the factors which we need to consider, it's about a cost. Each region's having different cost is been coming for the same product. That's the important point. Then we have understood product is been not available on all the regions. So this always depends upon we have a dependency for a region as well. So before committing anything to a client, we need to ensure that you are referring a Microsoft document, product document, based on that you are working on it. Otherwise, we'll have a problem. So before committing anything to a customer, we need to ensure that you are referring a product page and then you're going for a confirmation. That is an important point you need to remember here. Right now on the screen, you may be able to see few other options here. One is about a availability option and second one is about a security option. That point I'll discuss in the tomorrow session. Right now, I need to pass the message here. Availability option has been using. Yesterday, someone has been posted on the chat how the availability has been provided on in a VM. This basically like in case if your virtual machine or Azure VM is got crashed or there is some data center failure has been happened. So that kind of a situation, that the kind of a situation you need to have a you need to have a some kind of a availability option it's been needed. That's been basically known as redundancy kind of options. At any point of time, when the user is having at any issue has been on in a kind of a redundancy issue. For example, like I have a configured a VM on in a east west data center. Unfortunately, there is some fire or some kind of a natural calamity has been happening. So that moment, I need to have some kind of a mechanism available, which will allow us to provide a service from another data center. That has been decided at the time of the creation here. You may be able to see there are different availability options are being supported on in a cloud. One option normally we are using called availability zone or availability set. Availability set, or you may be heard about a option called auto scaling, especially like when you're using a web server. If you're getting a large number of a hit or the number of the people web server is being used high, that kind of a situation automatically you can able to provision another VM or another node from your pool. So in case if you want to go for all these options, you can able to go for a availability set or availability zone or auto scaling. What I'm trying to say here is the option which you're right now you're able to see here is basically a security or availability option. Basically, this is using for a HA, or basically we used to call it as a availability or a redundancy. Possible we'll discuss this point in another session. I'm just right now selecting I don't need any infrastructure here. So I'm saying, hey Microsoft, I'm trying to install a VM. I don't need any kind of a infrastructure or any kind of additional settings here. So that is an important point. We need to discuss it here. Now, coming on into the image part. So basically, when you are going for creating an image, it's asking like what is the type of the operating system you want to install it here. Right now, whatever option you are seeing here, this technically it's been loading from your marketplace. We don't have any option for customizing your VM here. You may be thinking like you want to go for some kind of a customization. That has been not possible as on date here. So right now you can able to see all the VM which has been supported by the Microsoft, that you can able to get it from here. You may be able to see here. You have an option of you can able to see you have a VM. It's been available with a different images you can able to see here. You can have a Windows servers or a 11 or it's been like a Unix or this kind of operating system you can able to see here. So depends upon the requirement from a client or based on the IAD which you are getting from a client. Based on that, you need to select the operating system here. You can have an option like a 2016. Right now, I'm going to select the operating system is 2016 here. One important point you need to remember here, whatever operating system you are using on in a Microsoft cloud, it's been supporting only 64-bit operating system. You don't have any option to use it as 32-bit operating system here. So all the operating system which has been supported on in Microsoft Azure, it's been configured with a 64-bit. Now, this is the place where you can able to select the size here. You may be able to see the moment when you select the size option. You may be seeing like when you're going for purchasing a mobile, based on our requirement. So maybe I may be preferring for having a phone with a good quality camera. In case Koi is going for purchasing a mobile, he may be looking for a CPU configuration. If Surag has been looking for a camera, he may be looking for the model or weight or height. There are different options may be using, right? Same thing for when you're going for purchasing a car also. People may go for electric, people may go for a petrol or a diesel, right? So here also you can able to see, depends upon where you're going to use your VM. Based on that, Microsoft is giving different configuration. For example, like if you're taking a B series, you may be able to see this is supporting 2 CPU, 4 RAM, and what is the IO input you are going to get it, and what is the number of the network card it's been supporting. Based on that, Microsoft has been aligned different model or series of VM here. On the right side, you may be able to see on which scenario you can able to use this VM here. And you take a B series or E series, right side, you may be able to see in which situation this model is been suited or which model this can be used. You can able to see give some description here. Now in each category, again you can able to see a different configuration also. See, you may be able to see different configuration here. So based on the customer requirement, based on how many processors the customer is looking, how many memory is been using, what is the capacity is been looking. Based on that, you may be able to select it from this VM size options here. Right now I'm selected. It's a B series. I'm selected. It's a two. This one I have an option for selecting a size here. It is selected. Select here. So we have option for selecting a size here. Now, important point you need to remember: the moment when you select a size here, there is a cost has been associated with that also. You may be remembering when you are purchasing a laptop, you may be seeing a shopkeeper saying that I need a 6 GB RAM processor for my laptop. The shopkeeper may say, "You, Robin, you have to pay X amount." In case if I'm saying like I need a 32 GB or a 64 GB, we may have to give some high-end price or some additional price for that, right? Similar way here also. The moment when you go for um, any kind of a configuration here, based on the configuration you are selecting, you have an option or the pricing is got changed here. Now we are getting a question at one point of time. I'm just taking a options here. For example, like I have created a VM here. I'm just giving a scenario. We have created a VM which got 2 CPU and 4 GB RAM and one NAC card. Now, as whatever Arif has been asked on the chat, after some time, the customer is saying, "Hey, Arif, your server has been not performing well. We need to have a more configured, or I need to have a more resource needs to be allotted here. How do we resize or how do we upgrade here?" So the important point you need to remember here, when you're going for any kind of a upgrade or a downgrade, that has been possible here. So at any point of time, after 2 months or 3 months, if the customer has been looking for any kind of a configuration change, that has been possible here. So there is a resizing that basically known as upgradation or downgrading. So in case if you want to go for upgrade your resource, it can be CPU or it can be a memory or it can be any other configuration. You have an option for upgrading your configuration. But the important point you need to remember, after 2 months or 3 months, if you're upgrading, definitely your price is going to be changed. So it's basically the number of the minute you're using, for the costing or the pricing is been coming based on your consumption. Is it being used by in a minutes or is being used by seconds? each resource having a different pattern has been available. Now, when you take a storage account, storage pricing has been calculated based on what is the size you are using, how many GB you have been consumed. Now, when you're considering a VM, it's been consuming based on how many minutes you've been using your VM. But when it is coming on in a firewall, what is the capacity or how much data you are been transferring from an input or output here? So such a way it's been working. So that's the reason on the pricing always we need to refer the Microsoft document page. Now we are getting a question from Subbu here. Is there any possibility to reduce the size possible? Yes. Subbu, I was saying um, we have an option for upgrade or a downgrade. Both option is been available. Downgrade means that reducing the size is possible. Yes, we can have. But important point always we need to remember here. When you're going for configuring any kind of a upgrade or a downgrade, we need to follow ITL process. You maybe heard about a process which is been normally following in a IT companies that's called ITIL. That is the practice we used to follow in a organization. Now in a ITL, you need to follow something called as change request. Any configuration which you need to do on in a cloud, this needs to have a business approval because there is a cost and pricing is involved. So you need to have a approval from a business. And at any point of time, when you're going for a downgrade or a upgrade, there is a downtime is being needed. What do you mean by downtime? We need to ensure that when you are informing a business, hey, application team, I'm going to make some kind of a changes on in your server. So this server is not going to be available for next 30 minutes or next 1 hour. In advance, we need to communicate this one to our business that basically known as downtime. So all this exercise we have been done, whether if you're going for an upgrade or a downgrade, we need to follow the change management process. That's the important point we need to consider at the time of a creation of or upgrading or a downgrading of resource here. I hope that point has been clear here. Now let's go back to the VM here. Right now I have been selected 2 CPU and 8 GB RAM here. You may be able to see um, you can able to see here the server has been selected here. Now this is the place where you are giving a username and password. I'll show you after the deployment where you're going to place or where you're going to enter this username and password here. I'm setting the username and password here. So this is the username and password which you are going to connect to your VM here. So the moment when you take a RDP, it will ask you for a username and password. That username and password is actually, it's been given here. So you have option to give the user here. So right now let's give a username and password here. So the important point you need to remember here, whatever username and password which you are setting here, you have a option which is been configured or inside your operating system. So whatever username and password, technically this has been not created inside your Azure infrastructure. For example, like when you're deploying a VM here, so the moment in a portal you are getting an option called username and password. Right now you can able to see here whatever username and password which is showing here. Right now whatever username and password which is showing here, this technically creating inside your operating system. You may be heard about a file called SAM file. So whatever username and password which you are selecting here right now, you can able to see here, you are giving trg admin or arif or robin, whatever username and password you're selecting here, this has been not selected inside your Azure portal. This technically, this username and password is going to create inside your operating system or inside your VM. Inside a VM, there is a file called SAM file. So what is the purpose of this username and password? The moment when you take a RDP connection to your VM, remote VM, which you are placing on in a Azure infrastructure, the first screen you are going to get, it's like, hey Robin, please provide the username and password. For connecting to that, this username and password we are setting here. You may be remembering when you install a laptop on in your personal use at the time of installation of Windows XP or a Windows Vista or Windows 10. You may be remembering you have been configured a first user, right? Basically known as administrator user account, right? So similar way, whatever user account or the username it's been providing here, this is going to be the first user which you are going to create in that username. Yes, exactly, Mohammed Azman. Whatever you pointed here on the comment, exactly, it's been right. So that's been the user account which you are going to create for accessing your VM here. Right now, I'm keeping all these points. These been default here. Right now, this NSG part possible like after break we'll discuss. Right now, you can able to see the licensing part. Now, Microsoft is saying at any point of time, if you're trying to upgrade it from your on-premises or any kind of settings here, or basically like you already have a license available on in your on-premises data center. You may be remembering like you have a server has been available, which already has been activated, and now you want to move the same server into a cloud. Activation needs to be done in a cloud as well. So Microsoft is saying, hey admin, do you have a existing license key has been available with you? Then I'm ready to give you 49% of cost reduction. So whatever username, whatever VM which you are going to create it here, in case if you have not selected this option, that VM is actually activated along with your product key. So that cost also has been included here. So whatever amount which you have been seen on top of the screen, like a 5,000 rupees or a 6,000 rupees, technically this is being included the cost for your license also. At any point of time, if already have a license or a server key, you may be remembering something called as a product key, right? In case if you already have a product key available with you, then you're going to get it a 49% of reduction for your network. So it's saying, hey admin, if you already have a license key, you can able to use it here. So right now I'm saying, sorry, Microsoft, I don't have any product keys been available with me. Now on the screen, you may be having a couple of other options also available on top of that. Basically, you can able to see you have a option like a disk, you have an option like a networking, you have an option like a monitoring, advanced, tags, and review. So we'll be discussing one by one here. So right now I'm just skipping all this point. I'm selecting a option called review and create here. So this basically doing a validation here. Now it's been validating this all the information which is currently it's been provided, and it will start a installation. Right now, whatever information is been provided, is it been correct? Or if something goes wrong here, you will get a red color error message here saying that, hey admin, you have been not provided the correct information. You need to uh, reconfigure it. Right now, you may be able to see this is giving a message here saying that the validation has been completed here, saying that whatever information you have been provided, all this information has been correct and the validation has been completed. So you can able to see validation is passed and you are getting a green color signal here to go ahead with this point. In case if you if you have been used a KMS kind of a method, then you can able to use the same key here. You maybe heard about a constant code key management service, right? That having an option to use the same key for a multiple one. So there is a concept is been available. So possible like end of the session, I'll try to give you some insight or a document for that. So some of the enterprise or configuration, they will be using a option of KMS. So with the help of that, same key can be used on a multiple VMs also. Right now, I'm just saying, yes, the validation has been success. So let's go for installation. I'm just on the bottom. Right now on the screen, you may be able to see this, whatever information or configuration so far it's been applied here. all that details you can able to see on the screen here. Now on the bottom, you may be able to see an option called download a template here. Right now on the bottom, you may be able to see an option called download a template here. So this you can able to use in case if you want to automate another set of a VM with the same configuration rather than giving the same or rather than selecting the same configuration here. You can download this template with the help of a ARM template or a PowerShell. You can able to use this one. You can automate the configurations here. For that, you can able to use this option. Now, right now I'm saying go for the creation here. The moment I have selected a create button, on the right side top, on the bell icon, which has been showing on the right side top, you may be able to see there is a message has been coming. Hey, admin, I'm initializing the deployment. You may be able to see the status of the VM or the information or the progress of your VM installation. You may be able to see on the notification area here. Technically, this will be updated inside your Azure monitor. So whatever configuration it's been doing, it's been updated inside this one. Right now, you can able to see the deployment is being started here. Uh, Normally, it will take 1 to 2 minutes, depends upon what is the configuration and the region you have been selected, and the deployment will complete. We'll do one thing. It's been almost an hour now. Let's take a 3 to 5 minutes break, quick refreshment break, and come back. And after the break, we'll be discussing about VM management, how we can able to manage your VM, what are the options been available here. We'll have a discussion around that. So we are taking 3 minutes refreshment break here. Then we'll come back. Thank you. I'm just muting mic. Thank you. I hope all are back. It was a 5 minutes break, and I was just making some lab questions for you. I missed the previous session. Is there any Google form to fill out? There is some sessions we are some questions we are getting here. Yeah, we already having all the sessions recording has been available on the YouTube. You can refer that. Now, let's go back to the session here. Right now, we were discussing about deploying a VM here. Right now on the screen, you may be able to see we have done some analysis or some checklist we have been follow, and we have deployed a VM here. Right now, you can able to see on the screen. We are getting a message from a Microsoft saying that, hey, admin, the deployment has been completed here, or the deployment is been completed here. You may be able to see there is a uh, deployment message you are getting here. You can able to see the message. Now, you may be remembering there are two scenarios here. The first scenario, it's been like when you are deploying a on-premises situation and you have a second situation, it's been like you have a cloud situation. Now, for example, if you deploy a VM on in a cloud or sorry on-premises scenario, how do we access this one? You may be remembering, you may be connecting a laptop or a monitor directly on the server, and we have an option to connect to the servers, right? You have an option to connect to the servers here. With the help of that, you can able to connect to the Microsoft portal here. Now, right now we are getting a question here. I'm sitting in a Nepal or Malaysia, and the VM currently we have been hosted in a North Europe location. Right now, you can able to see on the screen, you have deployed a VM here. For example, like once you created a VM, if you select this virtual machine tab, you may be able to see all the VM which has been configured under your subscription here. You can able to see you have a created a development VM, and it's been created under the production and the South Africa North location. This has been created here. You can able to see this is a virtual machine. It's been configured under the production tab, and current status of this VM has been running, and it's been configured with a particular configuration, and it's got a IP address also. So when you moment you click on the virtual machine, so this screen or this window will displaying you all the virtual machine has been currently it's been configured under your subscription. In case if you are not seeing here, you may be able to see there is a blue filtering tab which has been coming or in the middle of the screen here, right? On the middle of the screen, you may be able to see there are few subscription or filtering tab. You can able to see it here. So you can able to select on top of this, or you can able to select the screen here, right? Right now you can able to see there is a subscription or resource details or a location details. You can able to select it here at any point of time. In case if you're not able to see a particular VM, then you can able to select it from here. So you have an option for filtering tab here. With the help of that, you can able to change it here. So you have option to filter it here. So with the help of that, you can able to go for uh, you have option to connect it here. So you have option for selecting, or in case if you're not seeing it, with the help of this, you may be able to connect it from here. So there's an important point you need to remember it here. Now, the moment when you select an option called all resources, right now you can able to see on the left side or in the resource panel, you may be able to see an option called all resources here. So you can able to see right now, the moment when you create a all resources, or the moment that when you select the option called all resources here, you can able to see along with your VM, what are the resources is been currently it's been configured here. So we are getting a couple of points here. The moment when you create a VM, you may be remembering at the time of creation of VM, you may be given only a few informations here, right? Now, you may be able to see on in a cloud, the moment when you selected a VM, along with your VM, there is some dependent resources being created automatically. For example, now if you select all resources, you may be able to see there is a disk is being created automatically here. So what I'm trying to say here, the moment when you create a VM, along with your VM, there will be a two disk will be created. One, it's been known as operating system disk. Operating system disk means that your Windows Server or a Unix, that operating system will be created. Normally, when you take a Windows scenario, the size of the disk is going to be 127 GB. Normally, you can able to see on in a Windows scenario, the size is going to be 127 GB. If it is a Unix scenarios, it's going to be 30 GB. Normally, this will be assigned with a drive letter, C drive letter. So the moment when you create a operating system along with your VM, automatically there will be a disk is been attached and it's been created to a VM. And normally the size you can able to see 127 GB, and you have an option to extend also at any point of time. You if you want to, you can have an option to extend up to 3 TB also. So in case if you want to go and extend the size of your C drive to some particular configuration, you have option to extend this size as well. That is an important point you need to remember here. Now, when you go for managing this other disk, you may be able to see there will be a temporary disk also which been created here. Basically, this has been configured with a drive letter, D drive letter. When you create a VM, automatically you can able to see there is a C drive will be created, and you can able to see there is a D drive which has been created here. Now, D drive size is going to be around 15 GB. You may be heard about a file called a page file, right? When you worked on Windows operating system, you may be heard about a file called paging file, right? Page file or a virtual file. In case if you've been worked on a Unix, you may be heard about a file called SAP file. So basically, your SAP file or on in a Unix scenario or a Windows scenario, your page file that will be saved inside your D drive. So the important point you need to remember, this file or this drive will be only used for saving your page file or SAP file. So that is being used of only for extra memory or for giving a better performance to your network will be using this one. So you will have a better performance is been available. So for that, we have using this one. So that is an important point you need to remember here. So you have an option is been available where basically it's been configured with the page file here. Now, when you're going for, you have an option for page file or a SAP file. It's been saved on a D drive. So the thumb rule always we need to remember on in a cloud. Don't save any data inside your C drive or D drive here. The reason it's like at any time, if you're rebooting your server, whatever content has been available on your D drive, that will be wiped out. What I'm trying to say here is when we are rebooting a server or when we are restarting your server, whatever content has been available on in the D drive, that will be started from a clean state because this has been used or it's been designed basically for a SAM file or a paging file. So it's been not recommended you to use it for saving any kind of a data. And always we know or always we are aware that when you're using for a C drive has been only specified or it's been configured only for a operating system. So it's been not recommended for saving any kind of a data also because there is a chance of OS failure because you may be recovering a data from your OS drives, right? So it's been always not recommended to save any kind of information on in the C drive. So you may be getting a question, then how do I create a data disk or how do a customer is going to save any information on in the cloud? This is basically done with the help of an additional data disk. So the important point you need to remember, at any point of time, if the customer want to save any additional data, please ensure that you are configuring some additional data disk. rather than saving on in a C drive or rather than saving on in a D drive. Always it's preferred to have a extra or a dedicated disk is to be available for a data disk. That is an important point you need to remember here. So you need to have a separate disk to be available, which will help us for saving any kind of additional data configuration on in a cloud here. That is an important point you need to remember here. Now, coming on into the data disk here, this is about the data disk. So right now we understood the moment when you create a VM, along with your VM, you have a OS disk and you have a temporary disk is being got created here. Now, additionally to that, there will be a virtual network interface card will be created. There will be, when you created a VM, there will be a virtual network interface card will be created automatically. You may be remembering when you deploy a physical server on in your on-premises scenario, in case if you want to connect to world, we used to install something called as network interface card, or few people may be using a term called Ethernet card, right? This is going to be an entry and exit point for your server. Now, when it is coming on in a cloud, instead of using a physical card, this will be using a dedicated virtual network interface card. It's not using any kind of a physical here. This will be used a virtual network interface card here. So that is a important point you need to remember here. So with the help of that, you can able to see here. So you have an option for a uh, virtual network interface card. You will be able to select it here. So that is an important point. You can able to see it here. So you have a virtual network interface card. This will be connected or this will be created automatically. Can you comment it on the chat? What is the purpose of this virtual network interface card? Any idea? What is the purpose of virtual network interface card? Any idea what is the, yes, it's been like going to be a entry or an exit point here. So what I'm trying to say here is when you create a VM, you may be noticed along with your VM, there is a couple of dependent resources being created automatically. That's what I'm trying to say here. So you have a network interface, you have a network security group, and you have a public IP address. Now, right now, if you can able to see here, right now we understood when you create a VM. Let me redraw this diagram. The moment when you create a VM here, along with your VM, right now we understood disk is been created automatically. There will be a virtual network interface card is been created here. Now you need to understand there will be two IP address will be assigned for this. One, it's known as private IP address, and the second one is being known as this will be assigned with a public IP address. You know what is the difference between this public IP address and private IP address? Can you comment it on the chat? You may be already heard or you may be already using this on in your day-to-day operations. Can you comment it on the chat? What is the difference between on this two here? Public IP address and private IP address here. Yes, exactly. Basically, when you take a networking aspects, you may be heard about IP address, right? For making any kind of a communication, it's mandatory that you need to have a IP address. Now, any internal communication if you want to do on a cloud, that basically it's been done with the help of a private IP address. Any connection which you are trying to make it external world, that has been done with the help of a public IP address here. So that's an important point. You need to remember here. So you have a public IP address and you have a private IP address also is been available. So private IP address that will be used internally, which can be used for communicating all the VMs inside or all the resources inside in your organization. That's an important point you need to remember here. Now, what I'm trying to say here is when you deploy a VM, by default, your system or server is going to get a public IP address and it's going to get a private IP address also. So you'll be getting both the IP address here. So with the help of that, you have an option to connect to external world. You have an option to connect to the uh, internal resource as well. So this is the two option. It's been available on in the cloud. So you have a public IP address and you have a private IP address as well. So these are the two option currently we have. Now, right now you can able to see we have a VM is been configured on in a east west locations here. You can able to see you have a VM is been available here. Now we are trying to see how you can able to connect to this VM here. So you have a option for connecting to a VM here. So you may be able to see this VM has been available here. So you have a VM has been available. Right now you are sitting here. Now how do we connect to this VM? That is the next question we are going to discuss it here. What is your understanding or what is your viewpoint in case if I want to connect to this VM? What are the options being available here? Can you comment it on the chat? In case if you've been configured a VM on in a east to west location, how do we connect to this over here? And you are from connector from India. One option, I can send my engineer into east to west on site. I'm just giving here a you're giving it on site. Is it possible? Maximum, it's been not possible because Microsoft won't allow us to enter into their data centers, right? So this option is been not possible. Now we are seeing some couple of comments on the chat. I'm waiting for all the response here. Can you just comment on the chat? What are the options been available for us to connect to this server here? Can you comment it on the chat? So what are the options currently we have it on in a cloud? Can you just comment it on the chat? So we have a RDP, Bastion, VPN. Okay, great. Super. So we are getting a lot of answers on the chat. That's been great. Now, when you are coming on in a connectivity part, we have a lot of options are available on in a cloud. One of the commonly used method it's been like, we are going to connect to this VM with the help of something called as RDP, RDP or FQDN. This kind of option will be using. How this will be used? Will be used with the help of public IP address. That is one of the common method you can have option to connect to the server. So one of the common used method it's been like you can use a RDP protocol with the help of a public IP address. Second method, in case if you have been used a VPN available in your organization, you can take RDP with the help of a private IP address. There's a condition is applied. You need to have a VPN to be available in your organization. Then you can have a VPN option. If it is been available, you can use that. So with the help of a private IP address, you can able to connect it here. So you have a private IP address has been available. With the help of that, you can able to connect it here. Another option which you can able to use on in a customer place, or you may be able to see on in a client location, something called as a gateway server or gem server. Few organization will be using a term called gem server, and few organization has been using a term called gem server or gateway server. So you may be able to see there is a gem server or a gateway server option is been available. So there is a uh, option is been available, or it's like a configuring additional server for connecting here. So we have a gem server or gateway server option is been available here. Now, other option which you can able to use it on in a cloud, it's basically known as Bastion service. There is a Microsoft PaaS service been available. It's called a Bastion service. So with the help of a Bastion service, you have an option to connect to a cloud request. So you can able to see. So you have a option has been available. We can able to connect it here on in a cloud. With the help of that, you can able to connect to cloud infrastructure here. So with the help of that, you can able to connect to a cloud as well. So you have an option has been available to connect to cloud as well. Now you have a Bastion option has been available. Other than that, you maybe heard about a feature called firewall. You can able to use a firewall option in case if you want to connect it here. You have a option of firewall has been available. Inside your firewall, you can enable a feature called um, you can have option called firewall has been available. Inside firewall, you can able to see any option called natting. You can enable a natting inside a firewall here, or you can able to use another feature, something called as a LB. It's called load balancer. Inside a load balancer also, we have an option for connecting to LB. So you can able to see you have an option like a RDP or a jump server or a bastion service or a firewall or LB. These are the commonly used option for connecting or managing your VM from a remote location. I can see there is an comment is been on the chat. Asif is asking like, uh, can we use a any desk or uh, Teams or there are team viewer kind of application on in the cloud? Yes, we can able to use it in case if this VM is been enabled with the internet. Since you have a public IP address is been available, and if your firewall is been allowing your Teams or any desk application, yes, definitely you can able to connect it. There is no issue for that. But the important point you need to remember for a security reasons, especially on in a production or in a organization point of view, we won't allow any such kind of a third party applications or third party product to be allowed or it's been connected from an external. That's going to be a kind of a security compromise, or Robert, that's going to be make a kind of a security compromise inside your organization. So answer for your question, yes, we have a possibility or we have an option to do that. But as an architect or as from a security background, I won't recommend you to do that. Clear? So it's been not recommended to do that. So that is a important point we need to remember. So this is the important point you can able to see. So with the help of that, it's been assigned here. So that is an important point we need to remember here. Let me pause it here for taking your questions here. Any questions from anyone? So any questions from anyone? If you're good, can you comment it on the chat if it is good? So any question from anyone? So I'm just seeing like a comment. There's no additional fee if you get a Robert, that's coming on in a public IP address. Definitely, there will be additional cost available for a public IP address. Whatever IP address we are using here, for a public IP address, there is a cost is being involved. There is no cost is being available for the private IP address. So, answering to you, it's been cost has been involved. Now let me go through the other questions on the chat so I can able to see the other questions. I'm good. I can able to see the message on the chat. Yes, I'm getting a question here. Are these RDP protocol has been encrypted? Yes. Now, whatever remote connections which you are using on in a remote desktop, by default, this has been end to end. It's been encrypted. So whatever connection you are using, this has been encrypted using secure socket layer, basically known as SSL or TLS protocol. So that encryption is by default has been enabled here. So SSL and TLS is by default, thus it's been used for encrypting your connections here. I hope that make how can we get a course coming that's already. Will you show how to connect to? Yes, I'm going to discuss about that. So that's an important point. You can able to discuss it. So is there any site VPN on? Yes. So Paul, coming on into the VPN part, basically it's for making a encrypted connection between on premises or any kind of a connection. VPN is the technology we are using here. So Paul, answering to your question, basically there are three type of VPN is being supported on in a cloud infrastructure here, especially on in a Azure infrastructure. You can able to see this basically known as P2S, S2S, and something called as express route. So you have a three type of VPN is been supported here: point to site, and express route. These are the three type of the VPN is been supported here. Now, any other question has been pending here? Okay. Now, right now we have seen there are multiple method or multiple options are available on in a cloud, which will help us to connect it here, right? Now, let's go and see the first option, basically known as using a public IP address. Right now, if you take a VM here, you have the deployment has been completed here, right? You can able to see the VM deployment has been completed on the server here. Right now, if you go to the portal here, I'm selecting an option called virtual machine here. Now you can able to see the moment if I'm selecting on this VM, you may be able to see there are two IP addresses by default is been assigned for this VM here. On the properties on the right side of the screen, you may be able to see which resource group this has been aligned, which location this has been aligned, what is the type of the operating system is been used, and what is the size is been used here. And bottom, you may be able to see what is the type or what is the IP address is been currently it's been associated with this VM here. You may be able to see it's been configured with a public IP address here. You can able to see you have a public IP address has been available here. And in the bottom, if you're coming here, you may be able to see this is configured with a private IP address as well. You can able to see there is a private IP address has been assigned here. You can able to see there is a private IP address has been assigned. Now, right now we are trying to see how do we connect to this VM here. In case if you want to connect to this VM, on the VM properties, you may be able to see there is a button or there is an option you are getting something called as connect button here. You can click on the connect button where you can able to see there is a three option. One is called RDP and second one is called as SSH, and you can able to see Bastion service. There is a three option you can able to see here. Right now I'm selecting an option called RDP. The moment if I'm selecting an RDP, you may be able to see there is a RDP file, basically a pre-configured file you can uh, able to download it from here. You may be able to see there are two options you are getting. One is called as a public IP address, and second one is you can able to see the private IP address also, and the port number. So by default, any port which you are going to use it for RDP protocol, the standard port number we are using is a 3389. That is a by default port number you can able to see for any remote desktop procedure connection here. For example, if I'm connecting a private IP address here, if I'm downloading this download RDP file, you may be able to see on in my download page, there is a pre-configured file is been downloaded. Pre-configured file is nothing. Basically, the IP address of that VM and the port number is been added automatically. Nothing else. Just a you have a multiple of the option is been available. One option, like if you want to use a directly MSTSC, you can able to use this also. You can just give MSTSC and give the IP address. That also it's been possible here. Right now, if I'm trying to connect into 10.0.0.0.4, which is a private IP address, if I'm trying to connect it to this VM here, basically this has been connecting to the private IP address here. You can able to see it's been trying to connect to a VM here. Let's wait. You are getting a error message here, right? Why we are getting this error message? So what is the reason behind why we are getting a error message here? So the reason it's for the reason is that the IP address right now we are using here, it's basically a private IP address. You may be remembering here, when we have a private IP address or a public IP address, only one set of IP address only you can able to use or you can able to route in the internet. So basically the private IP address which you can able to assign to your computers like a 10 dot series or 172 series or 192 series or 169 series or 127 series. These are basically known as private IP address. This IP address is being used only for internal purpose. So basically the technical term, I can say these IP address are, it's been not routable in internet. You're getting a point? Right now, you are sitting from a Philippines or a Nepal and you are trying to connect with a private IP address 10 dot series, which is not going to be a route in internet because that's been not supported here. That's an internal IP address. You can use this internal IP address in case if there is a VPN is been enabled. Right now, I don't have any VPN connection is been available, so I won't be able to use this private IP address here. So the moment when you are using a private IP address, please one important point in your mind, in case if you want to use this one, you need to have a private IP address to be, so in case you need to have a VPN to be available, then only you'll be able to use uh, you need to use it for this options here. So that's the important point you need to remember here. So that's the important point we need to remember here. Now, second point you need to remember here, in case if I'm using a public IP address here and just downloading this file, this basically taking a public IP address, it's been assigned by the Microsoft or it's been assigned by the internet service provider. One important point you need to remember, in case if you are using a public IP address, there is a cost is been associated here. That cost is been already associated to your VM cost. That is an important point we need to remember here. So there's a cost is been associated here. That's an important point you need to remember here. Right now, if you go to the VM properties here, I'm just trying to connect it here. Let me give a connect options here. So you can able to see this. I'm just trying to connect to the VM here. Let's give me a second. I'm just giving this. I just given this username and password. So you may be able to see this option. So let's connect it here. Right now, you may be able to see on the screen the moment when you start connecting here, you may be able to see it's been asking for a username and password, right? For example, like right now I've been connected here. You may be able to see it's been asking a username and password and got this screen here. I request everyone to try to connect to my VM here. Let me give you this IP address here. Can everyone try to connect to this VM here? I just pasted the VM details on in the chat here. IP address I just pasted on the chat here. So you can connect to the VM here. Can you paste the screen or the message you are getting here while you are connecting to this server? Can you try to connect to this 20.164.43.236? Can you try it from your laptop? Uh, Paula, are you getting a login screen? User ID and password, I'll share it a little later. Yes, you may be able to see. You may be able to see a screen has been coming asking the username and password, right? Now, can you tell me which username and password I'm going to give it here? You may be remembering at the time of creation of a VM, we were getting an option, something called as username and password, right? You may be remembering. This is the place we have been provided a username and password. So technically, when you are trying to connect to a VM, so whatever username and password, basically I'm saying this is the first username and password which you have been given at the time of a creation that needs to be given here. I hope that point has been clear to you. So that's the important point you need to remember here. So that's the important point you can able to uh, see it here. So basically, like when you're going for this one, you can able to see this has been connected to on in the cloud here. So that's important point you need to remember here. So any questions? Let me pause it here for taking a question here. Yeah, I hope most of the members will be received a message here. You have a option for connecting this server with the help of a public IP address. So you may be remembering this has been connected with the help of a public IP address here, right? So let me go back to this screen here. Right now, I've been provided a remote desktop or it's been connected to this VM here. I'm just giving as yes here. I'm just connecting to the VM here. Right now, this has been validating my username and password. Basically, whatever username and password which we have been provided at the time of creation, that is been validated with the help of the SAM file which has been available on the VM. Right now, you can able to see this has been created here and it's been connected also. Let's wait. Right now, you may be able to see it on the screen. We have taken a remote desktop here. Now, for an end user or the client, they are not going to understand whether this VM is being hosted on in a cloud or is it hosted on in a hypervisor here. You may be able to see this has been configured with the help of a cloud here. So end user never knows this has been configured under a cloud or it's been configured under a hypervisor or it's been configured under a uh, particular hypervisor or a VM or a physical host. He's not going to understand the difference here. This is an important point you need to understand here. Now, another important point you need to remember here. Once you connected the server here, you can able to see here, or when you go to the disk properties here, right now you may be able to see how a VM has been available. If you go to the disk properties, you may be able to see by default there is a two disk as we discussed it's been coming here. One you can able to see C drive, and another one is called a D drive also. So I was saying in the morning, you have a you can able to see there is a C drive and D drive has been available, and C drive and D drive is been not, or it's not supposed to use for saving any kind of a data disk here. So basically, the reason has been like we have some risk is been involved here, because whatever data we are saving inside a temporary disk, whenever you're rebooting a server, whatever content is been available on the temporary disk, that will be auto cleared or it's been started from a clean stage. So it's been not recommended you to save any kind of a data inside a temporary disk. That's the important point you need to remember here. So always we prefer to have a additional data disk to be configured here. Let me show you how to add an additional disk here. Now, in case if you want to go for any kind of additional disk, you can go to the VM properties. For example, like in case if you want to configure any server here, customer is saying like, hey Robin, I need to have an additional disk to be available for my log file or a data disk or a application or a database. Then you can able to go to the properties of respective VM. You can able to go to the VM properties here. You have a VM has been available. So on the properties, you can able to go here. So you can just go to the properties here. Now on the properties, you may be able to see an option called disk here. I'm just giving it two options here. One, one scenario, it's been like you have been created a VM. After a deployment, if the customer is going to use it for adding an additional disk. Right now, we have a VM has been configured. Now, after the installation, customer is saying, hey, admin, I need an additional disk. How do we do that? So for doing this one, you can go to the properties of the VM. On the VM properties, you may be able to see an option called add disk here. Right now, you may be able to see here, there is a OS disk has been available, and bottom you can able to see an option called data disk. You can able to go for a create and attach new hard disk here. Now, this is the place where you can able to select different technology on in the backend. You maybe heard about a different hard disk technology available in the market, like a SSD. You maybe heard about something called as a ID or a SATA or a SCSI, right? So this kind of option you may be able to see it in the market based on what is the type of the performance you want. You may be able to select the right disk from here. So right now I'm selecting the disk option is been like a SSD option here. So I'm selecting like I need to have a SSD option here. Here you can able to give a name to whom, what is the purpose of the disk here. I'm saying like a, this is going to be a SQL disk. So I'm just saying this has been selecting as a SQL disk here. I'm just saying it's a SQL disk. I just given the details here. Now, if I'm just giving given the details and what is the size I need, I'm saying, see, I need a 5 GB of the size. Right now, whatever size you are selecting here, this has been configured as in a GB format. So I'm saying I need to have a 5 GB is the size I need. I'm just giving save here. You need to remember at any point of time when you're trying to make any kind of a configuration change, after making a configuration change, ensure that you have been given an option of save here. You need to ensure that whatever changes you are making on in the server, it's been saved. The configuration is saved on the system here. Otherwise, it won't be applied to the particular VM. Right now, you may be able to see I have added additional 5 GB hard disk here. On the notification area, you may be able to see the messages saying that it's been updated with the virtual machine here. So it's saying that, hey admin, I've been added 5 GB disk and this I have been attached to a VM here. Now let me go and check on the VM properties. Right now I'm inside a VM, but when I selected my computer here, I'm not seeing that 5 GB disk here. Any idea why this has been not used here? Why this 5 GB disk has been not showing here? Any idea what is the reason behind that? The reason behind that is it's been not initialized on in the OS side, because there is no drive letter has been assigned. Because in case if you want to see anything on in your my computer, we need to ensure that this has been assigned with a drive letter here. So for that, you need to go to disk management or disk part. I'm just going inside a disk management here. Now on the disk management, you can able to see like you have option for adding the disk here. So right now we are getting a message on in a disk management. Microsoft is saying, hey admin, Microsoft Cloud Portal has been added a 5 GB disk here. Uh, do you need to initialize this? Are you accepting this request here? So I'm saying, yes, I need that 5 disk. So I need to initialize whatever configuration change you have been made on in the server here. That is an important point you need to remember here. For example, here you can able to see I have been added a disk here. So right now disk is been attached. Now in case if I need to use this one, I need to ensure that the drive letter or partition is been created. As long as if you're not created a drive letter or a partition, we won't be able to use it on in a cloud side. That's an important point you can able to see here. So if you go to the important point here, you have a option you can able to see here. So you need to have a uh, discussion, or it's been like we need to have a drive letter to be assigned to this window here. I'm just saying this has been using for one, so drive letter. So I've been assigned the drive letter here. As long as I'm not provided any configuration, I won't be able to assign any drive letter here. So right now you can able to see here. If you go to a properties here, you can able to see the new drive letter is been assigned here. Now the important point you need to remember here, at any point of time, if you're trying to make any kind of a disk configuration, you don't need any downtime. But in case if you're trying to make any configuration change on your RAM or CPU kind of a resource on in a VM, you need a downtime. A few minutes before, someone has been asked, is there any possibility for downgrade or an upgrade of your resources, right? In case if you want to go for any kind of a upgrade or a downgrade, you can go to the VM properties. There you can able to see an option called size here, right? You may be able to see there is an option is been available, something called as a size here. You can able to see there is an option is been available called size here. So you have an option is been available called size here. Now you have you can able to select the respective select size what you want here. You can able to select the size here. I'm saying that I want to change this one configuration to so and so configuration. So we can able to select the respective size here. Now here you can able to see a message here. Hey admin, there is a one notification message you are getting here saying that you are getting a message here saying that hey admin, uh, in case if you want to make this kind of a symbol or the uh, notification you are getting here saying that in case if you're trying to make any kind of a configuration change, the machine needs a downtime. This is going to be restarted. So it's giving a message to admin. Hey, admin, this needs to be restarted. That's the reason you're getting a message here. So in case if you are want trying for doing any kind of a configuration change, or in case if you want to do any kind of a resize in terms of a downgrade or upgrade, you can go to the size here and you can able to select it here. So that's an important point you need to remember here. Now, you may I got another answer like why there is a red exclamation mark here, right? So there is another option I got it here. What is the reason behind that? There is a symbol we are getting here for a red color here. So you may be able to see there is a red color or it is like a exclamation or a notification kind of a message. The reason it's been like uh, it's giving a message saying that your internet or the VM is been currently it's been exposed to internet. That is the meaning of this message. It's saying to internet, it's giving a message saying that this has been exposed to internet. There is a security issues we have. That's the reason we are getting this error message here or this is symbol here. So that's an important point we need to remember here. Any questions from anyone? Let me pose it for your taking a all the questions here. Is it possible to mount the multiple in the same RAID level? Um, Basically, it's been coming on in a cloud scenario. We are not using any hardware kind of a RAIDs here. In case if you want to configure any kind of a redundancy, this needs to be configured on in a OS level. You may have to add a multiple disk here, and with the help of a software RAID, you may have to use it on in a cloud. So you have to use a software RAID. Or in case if you want to provide some kind of a um, any kind of a configuration on in a RAID kind of a concept, you may have to go for some feature called auto scaling, or basically known as virtual machine scale set. That is the option normally we are using. Now, let me go through all the questions here. Without restart, can we use this server? Yes, you can use the server. You can use the reboot the servers. There is no issue here because I've been configured a static public IP address, so we can able to use it here. In case if you're not restarting your server, that's been not right practice about you may be able to see like restarting a server is actually is always a compliance policy. In case if your server is been not restarted in your network, most of the organization that will have been taken as a kind of a vulnerability, or that will be taken by the complaints team saying that your server is been not reported. So always prefer to have a regular reboot for your all the monthly server, all the servers which you are going to host it on in a production scenarios. So always recommendation has been restart has been recommended because some of the patching or some of the uh, hot fix or a KBs always need a reboot. So always prefer to have a patching or always prefer to have a monthly regular reboot for your server. That has been recommended by the Microsoft also. So that's an important point we need to remember here. Inbound should be set to your gateway, right? Port is basically the inbound connection or outbound. In a two ways, this has been used to configure it on in a cloud. One, it's been configured on in a NSG, or it's been configured in the LB or in a firewall side. So this is the both the side. This your inbound role is being configured here. So that's an important point you need to remember here. Now, did I miss any questions here? I can see there is one more question related to storage account. Can I use a storage account for a common storage? Yes, you can able to use a storage account here. So that is a common practice we used to follow. So you can able to use a storage account here. So you can able to see you. So can RDP hack? Basically, yes, there is a possibility of hacking a public IP address. The other reason, Mahmoud, we are using basically using a concept something called as a DID. The concept which you are going to use it on in a cyber security called DID, that's called defense in depth. Uh, there is a possibility of hacking your firewall. There is a possibility of hacking your network layer. There is a possibility of attacking your SQL. So that's the reason organizations are using a concept of DID, that's called defense in depth. In case one layer has been uh, compromised, you have additional layer will be available for providing a security. So as Tino has been mentioned on the possible, like technically anything can be possible on in the cyber world. So there is a possibility of hacking your RDP as well. That's the reason organizations are using a VPN and going for all the kind of a additional DID kind of a concept on in a cloud. So let me go for all the questions on the chat. No, you don't have any possibility for using a local storage. You have only option like Azure Managed Disk or a blob storage. Only this is the option has been available. So Mahmoud, Sane asking, answering to your question, using a local storage on Azure VM has been not possible here. So this has been not possible. So uh, connecting or using a local storage which has been configured on in a SCSI or a SAS has been not possible here. So that's an important point you need to remember. It's not possible. So I think we are top of the time today. Surag, over to you. Hey, Surag. So we're waiting for Sudak to join. Just give me.
Yes.
Yeah. So it look like he's talking on mute. Oh, yes, Sudak, it's over to you. Look like we are on top of the time. Sorry, I've been taking some additional minutes because we are you showing how to monitor alert system? Yes, that if I'll try to show you a demo of that tomorrow, how to do a monitoring or how to use a network archer. I'll try to show you tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll be discussing about Active Directory. I'll try to show you how NSG can be used and I'll show you how to use a monitoring system also. Over to you, Surak. Thank you. I'll try
Thank
to
you,
answer.
Robin, for the session, and I hope the answers you have gotten for this today's session as well. And I would like to repeat that there is no attendance today, and you can leave if you are done, if you have no more questions and anything else than this. And there is going to be attendance tomorrow. It is important that you fill out that form, which I'll be sharing tomorrow to receive your certificate of participation. Be sure to be there on tomorrow, and it will be shared at the end of the session. And the today's session recording will be available within an hour or two in our YouTube channel. That's it. And if there is any question, please do drop in the chat box. And I hope everybody is already in the community. If you're not, I will leave a link to our community to be joining, where we'll be having more trainings and more webinars like these in the community. You will be able to join completely free of cost to all the sessions that we'll be conducting in the community. And thank you again for Robin, and thank you again for all who had joined us for the day two of AZ104 training, and looking forward to have you on day three as well. Be sure to be on time tomorrow. And thank you all. Have a great day.